When does a country have an advantage in trade? But first, let us define what trade is. According to Investopedia, trade is a basic economic concept involving the buying and selling of goods and services with compensation paid by a buyer to a seller or the exchange of goods or services between parties. The main purposes of trade are to exchange wants and needs, boosting economic growth, and earning revenue and profit. While the definition of trade may be quite complex, trade is evident in every situation of our lives. For example, in our context as a consumer, when we order food from a restaurant, we choose to buy the products the producer has to offer. This is considered a trade because it is an exchange of a consumer's money for the producer's product. On the other hand, in the context as a producer, when they produce the products consumers buy, they choose to buy different products from other producers to make a final good. This is also considered a trade because they too exchange their money for other producers' products, as well as earning profit through their final product. The most common and widely accepted medium of exchange for transactions is money, but trade may also be executed with the moneyless exchange of goods or services between both parties involved, which is known as barter. Barter trade is the first known type of trade. It occurs when the parties involved have a mutual coincidence of wants, which means that both parties want exactly what the other has and are willing to trade what they have for it. Despite this, the disadvantage of bartering is that some goods and services a party offers are not always acceptable or easily divisible for payment. In a larger scale, countries trade internationally through either exporting or importing different goods and services to or from other countries. Since not every good can be produced by a country, trade-offs and opportunity costs exist. For a country to be able to know what specific good they should produce, they must calculate for their absolute and comparative advantages with different goods and services, which will be discussed by my colleague Tyler Gobaco.
In order to know how a country has an advantage in trade, we must first know the laws of economics. There are two types of advantages when it comes to trade. We first have the comparative advantage and the absolute advantage. A comparative advantage is when a country is able to produce more goods at a lower opportunity cost. And then an opportunity cost, on the other hand, is when you choose to gain an item but you lose to gain the value of the other. For example, when I choose a pack of bananas or a watermelon and I choose the banana, I lose the utility that I can gain from the watermelon. What about an absolute advantage then? An absolute advantage is when you are able to produce more using less resources. Let's say you have two lemonade stands, A and B. Stand A can produce 20 cups of lemonade in 5 minutes, while stand B can produce 10 cups of lemonade in 10 minutes, which overall means that stand A has the absolute advantage because they can produce more cups in less time. Remember, these two terms are different, and you need to know them if you want to know who has the advantage in trade, which will be discussed by Enrico Henato.
When does a country have advantage in trade? Before answering this question, we first need to know the two advantages when it comes to trading, and that is comparative advantage and absolute advantage. A comparative advantage is when the country is able to produce more goods at a lower opportunity cost, and an absolute advantage is producing more while using less resources, and even though there's a lower opportunity cost for when it comes to comparative advantage, absolute advantage is still preferred because an opportunity cost is losing something by choosing the other option. Now, to answer the question of when does a country have advantage in trade, it is even if one country is more efficient in the production of all goods, aka has an absolute advantage in all goods than another country, both countries will still gain by trading with each other. And the only time a country can have an advantage in trade is when they are trading with another country a product that is considered useless or has no effect on the people of the country.